What do you mean by beyond and above? Is it about achieving success, overcoming obstacles, or is it simply about pushing through your limits till the world says that is enough? So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, leaders, doers, dreamers, achievers, warriors of your own battle, and believers in the impossible, good afternoon. I just want you don't doze off, especially when it is a post-lunch session. So my work gets tougher. I need to keep you all up and awake besides myself. So now, I'll take you to a journey of resilience, of conquering what lies beyond the horizon, and the journey will be filled with very interesting true stories of my life, a couple of them only. So before that, let us do some warming up. Okay, boys and girls, ready? So now, clench your fists if you have ever spent an all-nighter for an assignment. I can see many fists. Now, please keep your fists clenched if that all-nighter was spent in binge-watching Netflix instead. Yes, some honest people are agreeing to it. So congratulations, you all have shown your resilience, though not in the way your professors hoped. Now, please raise your hands if procrastination has managed to hold you back sometimes. I can see some hands. That's very natural. Now, could you please take a deep breath if overthinking has paralyzed you at some point in time? Good. Taking deep breaths is good for health. It's good for your lungs. So thank you for your response. You all are all very amazing. Now, let us move on with the stories. Ready? Story time. Okay? So, see, I'm an anesthesiologist. My job is to put people to sleep during surgeries so that they wake up pain-free, alive, and feeling better. But there was a time I was struggling to keep myself alive and myself awake. I had ignored the symptoms for long, I had ignored my health for long, and I had dismissed the fact that I was battling with a physical ailment. I was in a denial mode. Mujhe kaise? I kept on fulfilling life's demands till my body betrayed me one day. I was literally and figuratively gasping for a single breath. When I was rushed to the hospital, my lungs were bleeding, even to the touch of a bronchoscope. To inform, bronchoscope is an instrument through which you can look what is there inside your lungs. So it was bleeding heavily. And the doctors, though they were angered, they could not scold me. They just asked me, "Are you a doctor?" And yes, I was ashamed to say, yes, I am a doctor. Because I had landed into the ICU under the beeping monitors, all because of my negligence. Mycobacterium tuberculi had eaten up my lungs, and I was suffering from advanced pulmonary tuberculosis. So, okay, medications healed me over time, and I learned the lesson that self-care is very important. Time for some humor. Doctors are the worst patients, and I'm the prime example. I self-diagnosed, self-medicated, and I thought I was invincible. And beyond that, I thought that if I ignored the disease, it would leave me without causing me any harm, but it did not do so. So never do that. And also trust me, these hospital gowns are not as glamorous as they show in the movies and the dramas. No fancy soundtracks, no heroic speeches, just those beeping monitors and the smell of the drugs and the medicines. And that is not at all pleasant. Tell me, have you ever ignored those tiny system updates on your phone till your phone crashed? Have you done that? I've done that. And I did the same with my health, except for the fact that there was no factory reset option in this case. Trust me, debugging a JavaScript is easier than removing a bug from your health. So I'll repeat, taking care of your health is very important. Now, coming back to my story, it was just the beginning. My battle was not against my failing health only. It was also against a system that saw my struggles as my weakness, against the world that wanted me to go and do the normal course at any cost. It was against the people who had turned their backs when I needed them the most. I suffered from sarcasms and whispers behind my back, some ignorance, some discrimination after I returned to work. Though I had turned non-infective, people were keeping distances. Okay, they did that for their safety, but that was not required. These left scars over my mind and body, but let me tell you, the deeper scars were left not by this disease or the societal stigmas. The deeper scars were left by the hands that had promised to hold mine forever. Story number 2. I have battled, and let me tell you before that I'm still drawing courage to talk about it. I'll talk very briefly because there are very young hearts and young minds over here who may not understand the second story. And this story I have written in the Stories of Courage, Volume 2, my 5th book. So I had battled with domestic violence and marital abuse for 12 long years. Will you believe that? An educated girl, a doctor, can endure in silence? And will you relate with me if I tell you that I did this to maintain the sanctity and purity of love and love marriage? I did not want people to lose trust in love. I did not want my parents to tell me that I told you to think twice. So I was battling with it. I was trying to manage work and life because I was only 24. I had a 10-month-old child. I was in my new job. I had to do well at all the places. So I was battling with all that. And unknowingly, I had entered into a cycle of binging and overeating, sleeping a lot, not sleeping at all, talking all day or not talking at all for days, starving, and getting disoriented at times. I had been trapped into the paradox. I had become a paradox between pain and pretense. But then, one day I decided to raise my voice and give voice to my silence. I just stood up and said, ENOUGH, enough. I sought support of my family, my peers. I managed to take my spouse to the counselor. And then I learned gradually over time to balance work and life, to prioritize myself, not to provoke the other person, not to start the fight, and to focus on my passion. I chose to rewrite my story, and I did. I did not want me to be defined by my past. I chose to define myself and rewrite my present. It was then that I decided to turn my scars to stories, my struggles to strength, and my pain to purpose and power. And it was then that I continued to love immensely, forgive generously, and live fearlessly. So now I was a new person. And then my story continues because then I decided to resume my PG studies, and this happened some 12 to 13 years after my graduation. It was tough to sit in the national entrance examination and to crack it with good marks. I did it. I could make it because I had put in efforts. And I got admission in one of my favorite subjects, anesthesiology, in the prestigious Institute of Aligarh Muslim University. And I'm a proud Alig, I can tell you that. There also I had struggles. People were sarcastic. 40s में PG करने आई हैं? क्या ज़रूरत थी? You don't know this, you don't know that, and how come you say you are a medical superintendent? But I had learned to endure in silence because my purpose was different. But still there was something within me that wanted more. Like dil mange more. And then I realized that yes, I had been writing blogs and snippets and poetry and had been throwing it here and there, but now it was time to compile them. My friends and some of my mentors guided me to writing a book. And it was then that I embarked upon the author journey, which happened just 10, 11 months back. Since I have written and published some 6 books, the latest one is Beneath Mind Matters. It is a self-help book full of interesting stories, struggles, and success on mental health. So now, by now, you could have understood that physical health is very important. But let me tell you, mental health is as important as physical health. And this is a topic which holds a lot of stigma around it. People don't open up their hearts. Even I did the same. I have been there. I have lived the struggle and faced the darkness and have clawed my way out. Over all these years of my medical practice, I could decode the fact that the brain is the most intricate and fragile organ. It can hide its screams behind the laughters and can stay scarred for years without opening up. Why? Because there is a taboo around mental illness. When I was a kid, I could hear people telling, wo pagal ho gaya, wo pagal ho gaya. So mental illness is not like pagal hona. In those days, even psychiatrists were called pagal doctor because they used to treat these pagal people. See, any mental illness is just like any other physical illness, and one can heal from it. One can behave normally. One can come out of it alive. I have really lost count of faces presenting to the ER, the young faces who had gulped pills, who had hung themselves. We have struggled to save lives. We could succeed in some. We could not succeed in many. I have seen homemakers being burdened under work responsibilities and under unfulfilled dreams. I have also seen IT professionals struggling to be perfect, struggling to be excellent. So the data is even more alarming. In India, epidemiological studies say that 9.7 to 350 per 1,000 people are battling with mental illness. And what is worse, 70% of the people don't talk about it, have not sought support. In 15 to 29-year-olds, suicide is the most common cause of death. There are 26.21% women who are battling with intimate partner violence and have been suffering from mental illness. I'm one of them. 60 to 70% of women are juggling to balance their work and life, and 50 to 70% of doctors are not mentally fit. So it is a serious issue. So what needs to be done? Open communication is very important. Destigmatization of mental health, as I told earlier, is very important. Parents should teach their children to reanalyze success, to embrace failures, and parents need to practice the replace technique. Like instead of asking, why didn't you score 100%? They can ask, how are you doing? How are you feeling after your exams? So there are a number of things parents can do. Old people who are suffering from mental illness due to social isolation, they need to be understood with empathy in our hearts. There are caregivers caregivers of the ill patients who are battling with mental illness. They need support. There should be committees at the workplaces, at schools and colleges, where people can come and open their heart, and so that these mental illnesses can be detected on time and can be treated, can be healed. Most of the times, just counseling can heal. Most of the times, just listening to them can help them. And we are doing that most of the times. So now, if you think of a mad woman, don't really think of a woman who's walking on the streets with torn clothes and untidy hair. You can very well think of me. So, a person who has battled physical and mental illness is standing before you as an orator, as a doctor who is doing fairly well, and as a best-selling author. So today, when you move out of this room and ask yourselves, what is your beyond and above? And when you get your answers, don't just chase it. Rise to it. And if you ever feel like giving up, remember, if an anesthesiologist who had put herself to sleep emotionally for years can wake up and stand tall before you, each of you can too. Thank you so much for your patient listening. You all are amazing. Thank you. Thank you.